Sawyer, and you're listening to Our House, A to Z.
All right, welcome back to Our House. How we doing?
Did you know that today is 1 week from Valentine's Day?
Which means that
next Friday is Valentine's Day.
Means that next Saturday is our engagement anniversary.
Engagement anniversary.
Pretty big deal.
Wow.
Pretty big deal.
Everybody celebrates that these days.
Coming in hot on Valentine's Day, though, we probably should be talking about, like, all things romance, love. It's in the air.
Let's save it for next week. We'll save it for the actual Valentine's Day. We'll talk about it then.
I don't know. This might be several weeks in the making, really, I feel like. But we should probably talk about some current events first.
Did you know, speaking of current events and Valentine's Day lumped together.
All together.
Remember when they were all talking about, this is only like a week ago, and it was like the tariff they were going to put, that President Trump was going to put on, it was Venezuela, right? That they couldn't land the planes in Venezuela.
Oh, I thought it was Mexico that wouldn't let them land the planes. I think the president of Mexico said she would not allow.
That's true, but
the
then that was
planes.
true.
You're talking about the deportation planes?
Yes, but that was true. But it was like the next day, it was like Venezuela.
Oh, okay.
And Venezuela was like, no, if there are citizens, like we want them treated like presidentially. Like you need to treat them better. You can't just put them on an army plane and bring them back. So he sent his like presidential airplane over to pick up the criminals. Well, one of the things Trump was doing was putting this tariff on Venezuela.
Somebody had to do it.
Well, and he said it's going to be like for the next month or so at like increase. It was supposed to be like every week it was going to increase in percentage.
Yeah.
Turns out because it was Valentine's Day coming up and their greatest export is roses. So the United States ships in like the most, it's like their largest consumer of their roses. And it's their biggest product, and it ships out for Valentine's Day.
Wow.
So it was like this huge thing. And it was like, oh, okay, like, never mind. We will take them, but we're sending our presidential flight.
I am the chosen one.
Okay.
Over to pick them up. It's just funny. It's just a funny thing because it was Valentine's Day. Because it's Valentine's Day and current events.
So, yes.
So you missed that story, and it was good.
No, that's hilarious.
I know.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. I'm glad they...
No, it just came to me.
I love that. Well,
you're welcome.
I think the deportation thing is an important thing to talk about.
Is it?
Well, only because I think that, again, I want to, some of the stir was we're taking these men away from their families and like deporting them and like how awful is that to do? But I think it was you that had said, well, we do that with criminals in our own country. We take them away from their families and put them in jail.
Yeah. Our overarching view is always, no matter what is going on, whether you are for it or you're against it, to not be stirred by the stir. Like
Stirred
that,
by the stir.
That's number one.
Because
don't be stirred by the stir.
The goal is to stir you.
The goal is to stir you, and just wait till next week. And it's going to be something that is like, you might be upset by something this week. Next week, you're going to be so excited about something that happens.
Yeah.
And
stirred.
of course, what stirs us more than social justice items and politics for some reason? Nothing about what the Lord's doing. No, that's not the stuff that gets us excited or emotionally low or high. It's like, you know what, we're going to get really emotional and engaged in? Politics.
Politics.
Okay.
Something that we can actually do nothing about.
So don't be stirred by the stir.
Don't be stirred by the stir. And I feel like the media it's like predatory. It's like it's intentionally preying on what is going to stir us the most.
Well, I would just say this, like we were just talking about with the criminals, when they're going to prison, guess what? Your heart would break if you saw a kid crying for their dad whose father was going to prison. Like, your heart would break for the kid because you know it's not their fault. They're reaping what somebody else, another generation, has sowed. We're all reaping what other generations have sowed. But there's nothing wrong with that emotional piece of saying, like, hey, my heart breaks for a child who's losing a parent that maybe was present in their life and is no longer present. Of course.
Absolutely.
That's a normal, good, healthy human response. But to say, well, everything that we know is like good and safe and makes the place that we're raising our own children safer, we're going to like negate all of that for the sake of a child who's upset. You just be able to see the bigger picture.
You do. Yeah.
I know somebody's going to come at me. Don't come at me. Don't come at me. I know. I know how you feel. I get it.
I'm coming at you. I'm coming over. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting that, you know, as leaders of some of these countries who have had immigrants come over illegally, what's wild to me, too, is that they're saying, no, we won't take them back. And I'm thinking like, okay, so if these are fine, upstanding citizens that you're proud to say are representatives of your country, why would you not want them back? There are a lot of things that don't add up. There are a lot of things that don't make sense to me. So I'm just tired of doing the math.
I'm tired. I know.
I went to Bible college.
I shall not be stirred.
I don't do math like a tree planted by the waters.
No, but I do. I like want to. I feel a good debate in me. I feel like I want to debate.
Yeah.
But I know that that's not good either.
I think sometimes
because I want to understand. I want to be somebody who understands.
Do you want me
and
to find
listens.
somebody to be a guest speaker on here for you to have like an on-air debate with?
I mean, it's tempting.
I feel like it would be good. I feel like it would give our listenership, something to raise their blood pressure.
I know. I just feel like the days of good old-fashioned debates don't exist anymore.
No, because now it's not facts. It used to be facts that people debated with facts, but they don't. Now it's just emotional rile,
Yeah, and disdain for the person who doesn't agree with you instead of
respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very different. So
true.
That's why you can't debate anymore.
Okay. All right. Never mind. We're not doing it then.
Forget all of that.
That's totally fine. But on to other things.
Would you say more important things?
Not necessarily. I don't know if there's anything more important than that. Just kidding. Not true. Okay, so Valentine's coming up. What are your thoughts on that?
On Valentine's Day?
Yeah. What are your expectations? Asking for a friend.
Oh my gosh. I don't have any expectations. Not really.
Well, we've never been holiday, we've never been
Right.
we got to do this. We do it every Valentine's Day.
I think some people it's significant. And you should know if your significant other, if Valentine's Day is important to them, you should know that and you should respond appropriately to that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's like birthdays. It's like some people are obsessed with their birthday and have to have fireworks go off and have to have a lot of money spent and a big deal made. And then other people despise their birthday.
I know.
And want to pretend like it
never
doesn't
happened.
exist.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. So it's good to know.
You should know that. You definitely should know that for people close to you. We were just talking about this because all of our kids are going to be out on Valentine's Day night. They're all out because we have youth group and the youngest is going out with somebody. So it was kind of like, all right, what are we going to do? All right, we have Valentine's Day.
Oh,
okay.
my goodness.
What are we going to do?
Chocolates.
I don't do we want to go out? Should we go out? So many people are out. Oh, it's such a busy night.
I know. That's why we got engaged on the 15th because it's so cliche.
All the restaurants are full. I don't know. Then it's do we just get takeout? We could just eat at home, be home alone for 2 hours.
Whoa.
I don't know. I mean, so many options.
What could happen? I think it is a good time to talk about this, though, because I was just recently with a friend of mine. And
can you get that Pringle I just dropped on
Yeah, of course. Anything for you.
Just
you don't want me to
smash it.
You don't want me to step on it?
No, I don't want you to smash it with your toe. I want you to bend down. Thank you.
If I had $1 for every time I heard that, I just want you to bend down.
That's what she said.
I think that it's a good thing to talk about on here because, and listen, if you're out there and you've been happily married for decades, high five to you. If you're healthy and you're making it work, higher five to you, 2 high fives. But there are young people who really need you to ask about their relationships. There are single people who need you to speak into stuff. Listen, if your marriage is a disaster, don't tell anybody else how to do theirs. But is that fair?
That's fair.
But if you have a great marriage, there are so many young adults and two young men, one who's been married not a long time, is in his first year, one who is not married yet, but is moving that way quickly. I had great conversations with both of them. And I was just thinking our response to a lot of things is how can we get information to as many people as efficiently as possible?
Yeah.
Hence the podcast, right? Another thing we do is, let's hold a marriage conference.
Yeah.
Right? So we do these things. We're let's have a ministry for this. But really the biblical prescription, while all those things are great, it's good old fashioned relationships. Have some wise counsel in your life. And then I'll say this to married couples, be the wise counsel. Be aware and discerning enough to look around you and say, hey, there's a young couple in our greenhouse. We should take them out and ask them how they're doing. Hey, there's a young single guy in the young adults group or whatever, and the Lord's put him on my heart. I wanted to take him out for coffee and say, hey, how's your relationship going that you've been dating? But here's my question for you. What advice would you give to somebody who's in a relationship and that person wants to move more quickly towards marriage than the other person? If you're in one of those relationships where you're I'm ready to get married now. And by the way, I think in recent history, it's thought of as the girl that's in this relationship with no milestones or markers in it, and the girl's I want to get married, I want to have kids, my biological clock is ticking.
Yeah,
which
that's definitely the old way of thinking.
That's the old way because now people are having kids at 50. But I think the guy nowadays, especially in Christian circles, the guy is let's get married. And sometimes it's the girl who's no, I want to finish school. I want to get a career going, whatever. But either way, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
I think that advice is so particular to the couple. And depending on who it is and what's going on in that situation, I don't know if it's very broad advice that
There's
you can give.
There's got to be some blanket stuff, some
broad
wisdom.
Advice is to decide is this person worth waiting for? Is this somebody who I definitely, like, I know the Lord has sent this person into my life and I want to marry them, and there's a reasonable time frame that they're asking for? Like,
Okay.
hey, yes, I want, like, I have also decided that, like, I do want to get married, but maybe in, like, a year and a half or, like, 2 years, or I finish school in 2 years, and then, like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah.
Then you put your big boy pants on and you say, okay, I'm going to hang on for 2 years because I want this, you want this, we've agreed together. And our closest counsel is saying, yes, this is a healthy relationship, move towards this. And sometimes you have to wait. Sometimes people are out and serving overseas, or they're on missions projects or whatever it is. Sometimes you have to wait, and it's not always the timing that you want.
Yeah.
Or that is best for you. But get ready to practice for the rest of your life if you're planning on getting married. It's not always about what's best for you or your timing and things. So if you were dating somebody and you were trying to get married and they didn't have any interest in really talking about it, pursuing that, having those conversations, even talking about down the road, it's kind of like, I don't know, like, we'll see, like, aren't we just having fun, like that kind of thing, I would say, hey, my best advice would be to put a little, like, pause on the relationship and say, hey, when you're ready, like a year or two from now, when you think you're ready to process things like that or kind of work in that direction, we could give this another try if I'm in the same place.
Yeah.
I know you don't agree with that advice,
I don't
but that's kind of...
I don't disagree with it. I just feel the whole, like, idea of, like, put your big boy pants on and wait. I feel like the big boy pants is, like, the mature thing is, like, have a relationship that you can, if you're at an age, I'm not talking about for like 15, 16-year-olds, I'm talking about people in their 20s. In your 20s, it's like if you're dating and not having, after like a few dates, not like a few months even, and you're not wanting to have any conversations about is this moving towards marriage or not, to me, the big boy pants thing is not to wait and just keep investing time in that person and that relationship. To me, the big boy pants is, hey, you may feel a little bit of emotional attachment there, but it might be time to put the space in, to put the pause now and go ask the Lord if there's,
Yeah,
you know.
I'd probably disagree. Like, I would probably say that's way too short of time. I think if you're in a relationship where you've been in for a year and a half, 2 years, and nothing has progressed and you're in your 20s, I'd say, okay, nope, that's like...
Well, there's a reason
that's
why.
not going anywhere.
But if you're really ready to get married, then there's a reason, and it's I think you're thinking of, there are a lot of relationships where the people date for 3, 6, 9 months, a year, and neither one of them is really ready to get married. They're like both really enjoying the fun and the freedom of dating and getting to know each other on that level. By all means, keep dating. But if one person, the guy or the girl, is like, okay, I don't want to just keep doing this, where like I know what I want. If you're still trying to figure out what you want, it's one thing. But if somebody says, I know what I want and I know that I'm ready to get married, to me, at some point, if you're not on that same page, it's going to create resentment or bitterness or like, shoot, like how long are we doing this?
I understand what you're saying. I just don't 100% like agree, because I do feel like just because you decide to go on a date with somebody and you feel like I'm at a place where I want to get married and you should be too, and if you're not, I'm out of here. I don't think that is like very understanding of the other party. I think it's not always just about like, well, I'm ready to get married, so you should be too. And we've dated for 2 months, so like wrap it up.
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree. I think that's kind of like...
I think you're kind of missing the scenario that I put out there, because I don't think that after dating for 2 months, I don't think most people are like, the expectation is, why does this person not want to marry me after 2 months? I think it's like momentum. It's like, are we moving this direction or aren't we? And that's not really even a 2 month, 3 month, maybe it's like a 6 month question. If you're in your 20s and you're feeling like, okay, this is on my heart to do, I know what I want, I think it would get frustrating to be in a relationship with somebody where you're expected to stay committed, but to not be moving forward.
Okay.
So, yeah, I get after 2 months, you know, if you're expecting somebody to be like,
well,
hey,
you said 3 months right before that. So
I think that there's just a good, I think it's a, if you're not on the same page in a conversation about it, it's probably a problem.
I think it's just hard. Like I said, kind of in the beginning of this question, it's really hard if you don't know the actual situation, because it can be so broad. Like even saying your 20s, like, is that 2021 or is that 29? Because I would even give advice probably differently based on that, depending on who you're dating.
Maybe. So,
or how long you've been dating, or what that person is saying. I think it's very different.
Yeah, there are variables. There's a lot of variables. I would say to all of them, though, that, and again, we might disagree on this, but after doing a lot of premarital counseling, marriage counseling, it's like if somebody doesn't see that relationship as like this is more important than whatever else is going on, like all the peripherals in my life, it would be hard for me to think that, okay, at some point you're going to flip a switch and now that relationship is going to become more important. For instance, I would say to somebody who's like, no, I want to finish my degree first, or I want to get my career started first, or I want to make X amount of dollars first. I've talked to guys who are like, I really just feel like I need to like get at this place in my career. And it's like, okay, if your career is first now, then your career will always be first. And I get that like it doesn't have to be. God can change people's hearts and people can experience transformation. But I would say to somebody who's in a relationship where the other person is putting something like, no, I want to do this. I have these goals. To me, that's not a good place for goals to be. When goals exist out in front of your marriage, even when it's like, no, our marriage will be better if I'm making more money when we get married, I understand the rationale for that. I would say get married and be poor.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just too easy to say, okay, if a promotion or if a job-related thing comes first, it will always come first. And that person, whoever that person is, they need to be in a relationship where they see that relationship as so important that it comes in front of their job or their finances or their
And I think we've counseled a lot in that direction. We've met with a lot of couples that are in those situations, and we've counseled exactly what we said, like, hey, if this is not a priority, like your relationship is the priority. But I don't think, I mean, if you were going to go back and it's 2007 and we started dating, it was 2006, but 2007 we started dating, we knew we wanted to get married. Should I have left school? Should you have quit school and said marriage is more important? And obviously my schooling is always going to take priority over us getting married. No, that doesn't even make sense.
But what I would say is if one of the two of us had felt like we needed to, we were on the same page.
I know, but I finished school and you still had another year. And I could have been like, if you're not going to take this marriage seriously.
I know, that's true.
You need to finish what you're doing, drop out.
And we could have done that.
And do this.
But you didn't feel that way, and neither did I.
I know, but would it have been correct? Would it have been right if I had put that pressure on?
It's not about it being right or wrong. It's about like if this is something like that's on your heart to do and you're frustrated and hurt or feeling like unprioritized or whatever, and like I was putting school first, or Zach, if you're putting ministry first now or Bible school first now, you're always going to put whatever before me.
You're definitely putting ministry first.
But my point was you didn't seem to have a problem with it.
No, I did have a problem with it, but it took a heart change for you.
My point is that if you are not equal, if you're not seeing, like, yes, anybody can say, oh, I wish we could get married faster. You may have a guy who's like really wanting to be more physical than that part of the relationship allows, and he wants to move forward. Or you may have a girl who's like really wants to move out of her parents' house. She's like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait. Please, let's like make this wedding as soon as possible. But the problem is not when somebody wants that. It's when you're on different pages. And so that's my biggest thing is how long do you stay in a relationship when you're like, okay, I want to get married and the other person doesn't. It's really that simple.
Yeah, you have to decide. I mean, there's a lot of times in relationships that you're on different pages. Sometimes it's like, why am I on this page and you're on that page and I'm on this one, now I'm thinking this. A lot of communication has to happen in relationships in general to say like, okay, we have to make a decision that we're going to get on the same page. Like maybe it's a whole different page. We're going to rip these two pages out of this book and we're going to be on a different page together. Or I'm going to come over here with you and I'll see things the way you see it, or vice versa. But that's why I do feel like having really good people around you, people that surround your relationship, whether it is your parents or family or pastors or overseers or greenhouse leaders or whatever you have mentorship in your life, have those people around to speak into those situations because they all do come with different scenarios and variables. So we're kind of just talking broadly about a lot of things that we've seen. Yeah. But every relationship is so different.
I think it can be easy to get sucked into a relationship where you stay longer than you should stay. Because you're hoping the person changes. Right. You're hoping they change their mind. You're hoping they change their priorities. You're hoping that you can convince them that your marriage, your future marriage is more important than whatever it is that they're consumed with.
I mean, we've seen countless relationships where people just stay in them too long.
Yeah,
and then in them too
long. And the longer you stay because you're, now I'm invested. Now I've already done this. Now we've gone this far. Now we've had this many years under our belt.
Well, that's why I'm saying when like a year goes by, or a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. We've seen all of that.
Yeah. And so how do you not get to that point? Like, that's why I'm saying, okay, we're talking about 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. And it's like, well, that's too short.
But that's why I'm talking about the communication piece. That's why I'm saying communication is like vital.
So like
when you're a year
say
in
what
and
your
it's
expectations
like,
are early.
This is where my expectations are.
I want to get married, like
This is where yours are. Are we able to get on the same page and have a plan together? Because the rest of your life, you have to make plans together with different thoughts, different feelings, different people that are coming together to make a plan that works for you as a family unit.
Right.
You have to do that the rest of your relationship if you're going to marry somebody. So you have to start then. If you cannot get on the same page because you're too far spread, that's when I would say it's time to wrap this one up.
And if somebody is more career oriented than they are family oriented, like that may be who they are. And it might, yes, you should stay in the relationship long enough to know, is that really who they are? Or is that like an expectation their parents have on them? And come to find out, all they need is some like persuasion from a relationship that seems worth it to them to be like, no, I actually want a marriage that comes before all those things. But I just think those are things that with a little discernment and like you said, some wisdom from some people that you trust, like don't stay in it.
Yeah.
This is like a breakup podcast for Valentine's Day. So that's probably not great.
You're sick.
I only mean it because
you don't like cliches. Here you go.
I don't want people trapped in relationships that aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, I get that.
And I feel like God has something greater for you. God has a destiny for you. And what I don't want, the only thing worse than people not being able to move forward in a relationship is moving forward with a relationship that then becomes the choke point on their gifts, their calling,
I totally
their
get
anointing.
it. I get it. And we've seen that. And then it's like on the opposite side, you also see that like people can't stay in a relationship because of selfishness. And it's like, well, I want to do this and I can't do this because of that. And they're holding me back. It's that too, because it affects your life too much. And you're like, I don't want my life to change. I don't want to not go places that I want to go and all of those things.
It's true.
So that's for another podcast.
It's real. But I do think that when you do find somebody, like we had a lot going on when we met and when we were getting engaged, when we were dating, when we were married. I was thinking about this, how like we both really wanted to get married in the fall. And our plan was to get married in the fall.
Yeah, we were like a fall wedding. Perfect. That's exactly what we want.
I love the fall. You love the fall. I was like, oh, this will be great. And we were even thinking like it's not like spring, summer, like so it'll be easier to get married in the fall because it's not traditional wedding season. And I don't even know why it changed, but for some reason it was like, no, why wait? Let's just get married in July.
Yep.
And I don't even know how that came about, but I remember it being like, it doesn't really matter that we had a plan and that we're doing something else because it's like, it makes sense.
Yeah. It came about based on the venue.
Okay.
Is what happened. We had gone and found a place we wanted to get married, loved the place, and was like, okay. And then I can't imagine why they didn't have anything open in the fall, or did they not? I can't remember. Anyway, they gave us dates and we were just like, oh, it's cheaper on a Thursday night?
On a Thursday night.
What Thursday nights are open? And they're like, this one. You're like, all right, let's just get married then.
There you go. It was the Glenn Manor that dictated our win.
But I would say this. We got married at the place we wanted to get married. Would we have gotten married somewhere else? Yes. It was not based on even like, it has to be, I have to get married at this location. And if they're not available for the next 10 months, then I'm not getting married until then.
Right. But I think when we were given the option, it was like, yeah, why wait? And it wasn't like our heart was so set on a thing that getting married didn't still.
Well, our heart was so set on marriage that the wedding didn't matter.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it needed to be.
That's what I think it has to be consistent. If you have two people and it's like, all right, I just got to finish this semester up at school so I can get my head clear for our wedding.
Right.
Yeah, but your heart is still set on getting married.
Yeah.
Both people's hearts.
It didn't, like the date didn't matter, the month didn't matter, the colors didn't matter. It's like all the things that you're like, it has to be this way.
The
it's
colors
be
matter
that
more
way.
now that we have to look at pictures.
And you're like, yeah, that's great. I remember like picking things and just being, yeah, that's great. Okay, that's great. Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
I know.
Like,
we're like, why did we pick those suits? Those stupid
it's
like
terrible.
suits.
Terrible.
There's
because
a lot
we
of
were
things.
just didn't care.
Yeah, we didn't care.
We didn't
just wanted
care
to get
enough.
married.
Yeah, and so it was.
I think that's great. And I think that my last advice, my last recommendation here too is like, don't marry somebody that gets in front of you and becomes a limit. Marry somebody that gets behind you and becomes a propulsion, because it is heartbreaking to me, and in your relationship. And that's one of the reasons why when I was struggling in that brief window of time when we were dating, and I'm like, man, like I don't want to wind up like these people in ministry who like cannot like hold a marriage together, and they like are weak and whatever. And I was seeing it left and right all over the place, and it's like, no, God gave me a wife that is not going to become a limitation to my calling. God gave me a wife that is going to make us a power couple. And I think that is what every single person should be thinking is, I'm not trying to marry someone. I'm not trying to find somebody who, because they'll just marry me, I'll settle or whatever. And it becomes this, or because I fall in love and have this emotional attachment to somebody, I'm going to accept the fact that they become the limitation for my destiny.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I 100% agree. And if you're not married yet, that's like huge advice. What would you say to the couples that are married
I would
already?
say God can do anything.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, I think that's like the encouragement part where it's like,
Yeah.
hey, there might be like some places, and I think it's easy to blame our spouse, like to be frustrated for what they're holding you back from, or feeling like I could be doing so much in ministry if I hadn't married so-and-so, or we'd have so much more financially if I hadn't married so-and-so. It's their fault.
You've probably said that a few times.
No, they're holding me back. But that's a very common like thing, because you get married and you're love blind or whatever it is for seasons, and then we have the conversation where it's like, did we marry the wrong person?
Right.
Did I marry the wrong person?
That's
like
never the right
maybe
question.
this wasn't like the Lord's will. Like I did this and he had called me to ministry and I knew it, or he had called me to be a missionary and I knew that, and then I married somebody who's afraid to fly, and now we can't go and fulfill the calling that the Lord put on my life.
Right.
What would you say to somebody like in that situation?
I think those are really good questions, and I don't think you can ever say I married the wrong person.
Correct.
I
Say that
think
again. Say it again.
You can never say I married the wrong person.
You can never say, listener, you can never say I married the wrong person.
Yeah, you can't. And the reason is because the day you stand at an altar with them and come into covenant with them, they are the right person.
That's it.
Like,
that's the one.
Like, that's your soulmate.
That's your soulmate. That's your one.
You know why? Because your soul is now mated to theirs.
Yeah.
Like, that's your soulmate, is whoever's soul you're, and
she's not still out there walking around.
Yeah,
she's
I
not
think
your
I
ex-girlfriend that you dated for a while and didn't. Nope.
Yep.
It's all gone. She's the one.
Correct. And I get it. Culture makes that hard.
Yes.
Valentine's Day makes
Culture makes that very hard. Very, very, very hard. Think Runaway Bride, all of those movies that you missed it. You were this close.
She dodged a bunch of bullets. I mean, the Runaway Bride. I mean, she didn't actually come into covenant with all those guys. But the good thing is, for folks out there, it's like there's grace for your marriage.
Absolutely.
There's grace for that covenant. And God, as the author and the inventor of the covenant of marriage, he is ready and waiting and willing to work with whatever you have. And so, if you're not married yet, think about that preemptively. If you are married now, understand that there's a good chance that the Lord allowed you guys to get married because the other person is not the only one that needs some work.
Absolutely.
And usually we only see the work that needs to take place in the other person. But it's very possible that whatever it is that you think you're being held back from by your spouse, there's actually something in you that's doing a lot of holding back too.
Yeah. Well, and I think it takes time. I think we want, because we're an immediate satisfaction generation, we want things really fast to turn around. We want them to be different. We want it to be good. We want to have everything we thought we were going to have. The process, though, is part of like what makes the great thing at the end of it so valuable. Right. You know?
Absolutely. These things don't have to be years and years and years.
Right.
I had the privilege this week of speaking at the King's Chapel. I told the story of Ehud and Eglon and how they had been under oppression and bondage for 18 years, the Israelites. But in one day, Ehud, because of his bravery and his courage and his willingness to like take a big risk and become vulnerable in that place, he defeated this king. And in one day, in a matter of a few hours, brings victory. And I think that sometimes we think of the years and years and years of what's hard behind us, but supernaturally, God can undo in minutes, literally minutes, what has been lifetimes of stuff.
Absolutely.
The question is how surrendered and yielded are you going to
Exactly.
be?
Well, that's what I was going to say about Ehud. It's like, okay, he had to make a decision that it wasn't going to be somebody else who was going to go do the hard thing. Like, I'm going to be the one, I'm going to take the journey because it wasn't right there. It was a journey to get there, and it was going to say, okay, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the brave one, and I'm putting my life on the line. So it's a complete selfless act for the sake of another.
Right. And selflessness is key.
Yeah.
And that might be the best lesson to learn this Valentine's Day is 99.9% of relationship issues come down to selfishness.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And like our feelings, I think a lot of our selfishness, like we go back and we've been told over and over again, like that our feelings are the be all end all. And if you're feeling this way, you should respond to it that way. And it's not true.
Right.
It's not true. We've been trained incorrectly, and our feelings are not what we're supposed to be responding to and being led by, and all of that. Yes, we have emotions, and yes, those all factor into our lives. Of course, all those things are important. But when we're feeling a certain way and we allow ourselves to respond based on that to our spouses, to those in relationship with us, it ends up being very much about me. And it's like, I'm feeling this way, and so you should feel this way because I feel this way, or I feel this way, and now I'm going to hurt you because
Right.
I feel this way. That's the maturing, where it's like, okay, I might feel this way right now, but this person doesn't deserve it. They deserve a conversation. You
Yeah.
can communicate, hey, to be honest, this is kind of how I'm feeling right now, and maybe part of that is because something so-and-so said, or likely did, or whatever it is. But that's how you have to learn how to communicate more maturely.
That's good. That's a good public service announcement.
Anyway, we had more planned for today, but we didn't get there, so we'll have to save it for next week.
Yeah. All right. That means you got to
Somehow
come
we just
back.
talked about Valentine's Day. I don't know.
I don't know.
Somehow we talked about relationships. That we weren't even talking about that today. I don't know what happened.
What are we talking about?
I don't know.
Tell
Gone
everybody
now.
what we're going to talk about next week.
No, gotta save it.
Got to tune in.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have the best day of your lives.
See you on Valentine's Day.
This is Messer. And I'm Willa. This is our house from A to Z. Thanks for coming over.
Well, isn't that special?
How about some,
Am I in danger?